Healthcare isn't just about medicine, it's about people. Every day, healthcare professionals face challenges that can't be solved by clinical expertise alone. They require trust, communication, leadership, innovation, and a willingness to see care from a different perspective. On The Exam Room with Dr. Rhiannon Winsor, we explore the ideas shaping the future of healthcare through conversations with remarkable people from inside and beyond the exam room. In our last episode, Dr. Eric Black reflected on the journey that led him to a lifetime of service and the philosophy that continues to guide his work: treat every patient with dignity, compassion, and respect. Now, the conversation shifts from why we care to how we care. From active listening and leadership to the everyday moments that build trust, Dr. Black shares why every interaction has the power to make a difference.
Taking the time, like that, I think on the healthcare side is such a barrier that we struggle with overcoming, is having that time. Time is such a barrier. When, we're seeing more patients in the day, less time to really sit and connect with them and get to know them. I know I've had very few personal experiences, like the one you describe. Only one that I can ever think of where I had a situation, it wasn't in dentistry, it was with another part of my health, but there was no clinical appointment that day. It was just like, come into my office. It was an office with a coffee table and two chairs, and we just sat and we talked about my diagnosis. And that is probably one of the only times that I really felt like my doctor was taking the time to just sit and listen and hear me and answer my questions. And I will never forget that. The way that it made me feel as a person first, and then a patient second. So taking the time, I think, is super important. I'm not sure how we do that in like mainstream healthcare. And then with that active listening piece of like respecting that the patient knows their own body and their own goals, and then we're willing to hear that and receive that part of meeting them where they are. That's the secret sauce,
Yeah.
I think.
And I think, taking the time comes with reading the room, right?
Mhm.
And knowing your abilities. I think a lot of people limit themselves on what they can do. So when folks come to the dental office and maybe, we're really booked and there's a perception there's not a lot of time.
Mm,
There really is. You don't have to sit at your desk to type a note. Type it
mm,
later. There's a human being that's in trouble that needs your help. Like, what's more important than that? Your note? Like, we can type the note over lunch. I'm well fed. I think everyone's could you could use a little calorie reduction. My belt's getting real tight. So I'm not gonna like worry if my lunch is cut short because I'm helping somebody, or if I have to stay, after work a little late. Who
mhm,
cares? I mean, the joy of helping someone else that's in need should override that, thought of cutting an appointment short or not connecting with somebody. It doesn't take too long to connect, or it doesn't
mm,
take too long to listen, but to make an active effort to really slow down for a moment, whatever that moment is. It could be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes if you need to.
yeah.
But I think it's always possible. And if you read the room and the patient wants to connect or needs to connect, I think, as providers, we need to take that opportunity because you never know how serious it is or how meaningful it is.
Mhm.
And sometimes you only get
Absolutely.
one chance too. So,
Yes. Yes, I agree. So then that makes me curious. In your experience, what do healthcare leaders often misunderstand about caring for underserved populations or just patients in general? What are your thoughts?
well, I think the The healthcare leaders that I work with are amazing and they get it. And I think we feed off each other. So I don't have any ideas of where people might be missing the mark with where I work. Um, but I do think that leaders in general, there's this opportunity to motivate, like to come in with energy. And I mean leaders like my superiors do that to me. They energize me, and then that flows down to the next
Mm,
level. So I think, if we can keep the energy high, if we can keep the can-do attitude present, and we can motivate rather than put limits on people or micromanage, let people work to their professional abilities. Like I call it professional freedom. Allow people to do that. You don't want to hold people back because you're trying to follow like maybe a set prescriptive type day because
mm.
it looks good on paper. Allow some freedom and some change in the flow to reach people because helping people doesn't always follow a recipe. There's an ebb and flow. It changes quickly.
Mm,
People's needs, they always surprise you.
mm.
So I think to be flexible is important, but to keep the energy high, like get that enthusiasm up there for the love of the work, and get people to understand like what they're doing makes a difference.
There's the culture there, and that starts from the top, and like you said, it moves all the way down. Do you have an example that you could share when, specifically when leadership was, made you feel really motivated or energized or enthusiastic?
There's no real big event because it happens all the time.
Okay.
When I talk to my superiors, they're always so polite. They have a can-do attitude. They're supportive all the time.
Mm,
It doesn't have to be something big and grand, once a year, but it could be,
mhm.
little motivating pushes throughout the year, and those just add up. So that just keeps me going and energized. But there is one, and I'll never forget it. So my first dental director, he at Tuba City, he was an ex world, or no, he was an ex Vietnam fighter pilot, helicopter. His name was Dr. Bob Palmer. And he worked in the clinic every day, 4 tens at the minimum at the hospital. And it's always really busy in a hospital. You see 2 chairs, 10 hours a day, 10
Mm.
patients in each chair easy. So it's just nonstop. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Wouldn't change it for the world. And Bob was out there every day working with us. And he was the director of this big 20-chair clinic. I said, Bob, do you ever get tired? He's like, no. Why would I? This is too much fun. And then one time we our schedule was just overbooked and it looked like you couldn't possibly do it, right? And I said, Bob, I know you got all kinds of other things you should be doing right now. And he looked at me, and it was lunchtime, by the way, and he says, nothing's more important than helping somebody right here. That
Mm.
stuff, he's like, that stuff can wait. And that sticks with me every day. So when someone says, I'm tired, we can sleep when we retire, right? Take a nap, later on in life. Take a nap on a weekend, whatever. But now is the moment, and I always hear him in the back of my head saying, do that later. Help somebody now. I love Bob. He's great. I wish you could meet him.
I do too. It sounds so
Mm,
fantastic. It reminds me a little bit of my dad actually, and how his attitude, during my formative years and even still, has just really impacted me and how I do things. And he set the foundation for how I treat and care for others. And I'm so grateful, for
mhm,
for his example. And I think that's an important thing too. I always hear like model the behavior,
mhm,
that you want to see in others, or, just be that change, be that person, and then I also think about too just the importance of being present. Like
mhm,
so much I hear that coming through what you're saying is that we're not worried about that email that we have to return or that note we have to write. Like right now, in this moment, we're with this person.
Yeah. Yep. Focus. The most important, focus on what's the most important thing in
Mhm.
healthcare. What is it?
The care of the
Yeah, it's
people.
people. Yeah.
I mean, that's why I do it.
Yes.
I don't know. I know it's hard. It's hard work, but I feel like it's really gratifying work.
Yeah.
The conversation continues. In our next episode, Dr. Eric Black shares how mobile dentistry is breaking down barriers to care, bringing oral health care directly to schools, rural communities, and patients who need it most. Then we'll explore why oral health is about so much more than a healthy smile, and how it plays a vital role in overall health, chronic disease prevention, and whole person care. Join us as we continue the conversation on The Exam Room.